Hello. Today's stories come from r/MaliciousCompliance. We've got 4 stories today. The first is short but packs a punch, figuratively. It's called You Would Have to Take That Up with the Board of Directors. There is a huge nationwide electronics retailer in the UK called Currys. They are renowned for having terrible customer service, but very occasionally having decent prices. I was in the market for a KitchenAid stand mixer, and my employer had an arrangement where I could buy Currys gift cards for a 10% discount. I was a bit reluctant to use them based on past experiences, but thought I would take advantage of saving a bit of cash and ordered my mixer online. Delivery due in a week. Easy peasy, I thought. It was about £250 or $300 before discount. Delivery day comes and goes. No mixer. The next day, I ring up customer service and ask what happened. After 20 minutes on hold, they tell me the product is out of stock and I will need to wait for their next delivery in 10 days' time. Not too bad. I'm a patient person. 10 days later, still no mixer or order update, even though it's showing as in stock and available to buy on their website. Back on the phone to customer service, more time on hold. This time, I'm told there is an order backlog and they couldn't tell me when it would be delivered, so I ask for a refund. Unfortunately, in the UK, if you pay by gift card, you can only get a refund by gift card. At this point, I had no desire to ever use Currys again and was disappointed in myself for ever giving it a go. I would have no use for a gift card, so I decided to give them a bit more time. No prizes for guessing that this didn't bear fruit. A couple of weeks later, I used the customer service online chat to see what is going on. Again, they are completely unable to help or confirm when or if I would receive my order. I asked what I was expected to do, and the bloke said something along the lines of, "No idea, mate. You would have to take it up with our board. Ha ha ha." Fine. It's malicious compliance time. A quick trip to the company's house website gives me a list of all of their directors. Here for anyone suffering a similar fate. Another hour on LinkedIn, and I've tracked them all down. I proceed to send every director a summary of what has happened and links to screenshots of the online chat I had with a customer service rep. Less than a day later, I get a call from the CEO's personal assistant apologizing profusely and personally guaranteeing she will sort it out. By the time this all happened, the mixer had gone down by another £60. So she processed my order again and said she would arrange for the accounts team to send me a voucher for the difference. She was genuinely the hero of this story. The very next day, my mixer arrives. Happy days. A few days after that, I get a letter with a Curry's voucher. I thought this would be the end of my sorry saga. However, as icing on the cake, they proceeded to send me 3 more £60 vouchers at random intervals over the next few months. I can only guess that their admin team is as useless as their customer service team. For completeness, I spent the vouchers on a new oven, which, unsurprisingly, turned up late and faulty and had to be replaced. Oh my goodness. This place sounds like a total nightmare. 10% off is definitely not worth dealing with incompetence. You end up paying more than the discount and time wasted. I think it's hilarious that OP reached out to each director, though. Let's check out the comments and hear of other fun times people have had with corporate head offices. Stubborn Kindness said, "The fact that you went on Company's House and actually tracked down the board is fracking awesome." Kilted Turtle added, "Writing to the board is always the power move. I was having issues with the Pennsylvania Turnpike Commission, toll road in the US, and I finally wrote to the full board. CEO's admin calls me 2 days later, says problem is fixed, do not ever write to the board again, gives me their direct number and says to call them first with any issues." OP replied, "I think people should do it more often. Might result in better service for others. My next move was going to be to buy a single share in the company so I could speak at the next shareholders meeting. Yes, I am that petty." Someone else shared, "When Chromebooks first launched, Currys had one of the decent models with £50 off. I went in to buy one in person and ended up in a standoff with their sales rep. It was £50 off, but they wanted to charge me, I think it was £30 to set it up correctly. Usually with Windows machines, they'll give you a trial for an antivirus and get it installed for you. Make sure your favorite browser is on there, etc. All the stuff you do at home anyway. Except this is a Chromebook. No antivirus needed, and it only runs Chrome. But the guy was adamant that I needed to pay for their service to have antivirus installed. The store manager backed up the sales rep, and I left empty-handed. It was the last time I stepped inside a Currys store." OP replied, "A sensible strategy. My new approach to Currys is the same approach I take to gambling. Only hand over what you can afford to lose. £5 HDMI cable. I'll take a punt. £1,000 TV? Nope. NSA Reddit monitor said, I would have just thrown cash down on the counter, grabbed the box, and left, daring them to call the police if they want. Our second story covers a man who isn't into coddling. It's called The Loser Ribbon. The story takes place in the 90s, which was a very different world to live in than what we have today. It was sort of in the middle of the turning point between borderline abuse of tough love and the advent of participation trophies. My karate instructor at the time was kind of like Cobra Kai. Not cartoonishly tough guy, but honestly, kind of leaning in that direction. I'll call him brass balls. Sparring was light contact, and while you were encouraged to actually hit each other, you were of course expected to pull your punches. And everyone wore full sparring gear, pads, cup, mouthguard, everything. So it wasn't like we were beating each other to death or anything. But if you drop your guard and take a side kick straight to the gut, you'll probably be on the ground for a bit. Karate is a contact sport, and we fully treated it as such. Anyway, another part of that environment was that only winners get promoted to the next belt. As part of your belt test, you had to do a kata to demonstrate your technique, and also win a light contact sparring match, kumite rules, against another student who was also up for a belt promotion. Only the winner gets promoted. So one weekend, after demonstrating my form and winning the sparring match, I get promoted. Let's call the kid Greg, because he was a good guy. Greg's dad, henceforth known as Numbnuts, is just losing his mind. Greg was totally cool with it, like, hey, congrats on the win. Guess I need to work on my defense. But Numbnuts just wasn't having it and started yelling at Brass Balls about how Greg deserves something for getting beat up. And he pays X amount of dollars a month for these lessons, so he expects some results, blah, blah, blah. Greg wasn't in any way beat up. I hardly touched him. I simply got 8 points ahead because he didn't keep his guard up. So Brass Balls is like, you're insisting that Greg deserves a ribbon for losing? Okie dokie, artichoke. I'm paraphrasing most of this story because it's been over 30 years, but he did literally say, okie dokie, artichoke. And I will never forget the lint eating grin he had as he did so. And that brings us to our malicious compliance. Brassballs steps into his office, shutting the door behind him. The whole time, Greg is like, Dad, stop it. You're embarrassing me. This is why I live with mom. But Numbnuts apparently thought he had managed to intimidate the big, bad karate teacher into getting his way. So he was just on cloud nine until the office door opened and Brassballs tucked a scrap of red ribbon into the belt of Greg's gi with the word loser written on it in marker. Numbnuts is speechless, sputtering like a fish out of water before Brassballs delivers the coup de grace. Don't worry, I made one for you too. And he hands Numbnuts an even bigger scrap of red cloth with loser on it. Numbnuts just completely deflated, realizing that he'd been beaten at his own game. And there was no way in Poseidon's Sea that he was beating Brassballs at his. So he just kind of mumbles and leaves. The funniest part is he took his loser ribbon with him. Greg, though, wore that handmade loser ribbon to class every day until he finally passed his test. He completely owned the loser ribbon and turned it into a source of motivation. No idea where he is now, but good on you, man. Hope you're still owning your failures and getting stronger from them. We all know that parent, am I right? Let's head to the comments where people give props to Greg. Well deserved for sure. Bodacious Vermin said, I like Greg. I hope he's doing well. Billy Ray Valentine added, Greg got more of mom's DNA. Road Rolling said, don't forget the mailman. Innerglow 33 added, my father was literally a mailman, so anytime someone asked who my dad was, I'd always say, the mailman. My dad found it hilarious. My mom absolutely hated it. Haha. Yadi Wannabe said, kid of a parent that tried to buy my way onto teams and for playing time. So embarrassing. Nothing like having your parent yell at the coach in front of you and everyone else that they have done X, Y, or Z so the coach owes them. Figgy Pie added, yeah, that's some bullcrap. My 5-year-old took swimming lessons this summer, but one of the instructors told me she didn't pass her beginner class because she wouldn't do a back float for the required time. I could tell the poor high school girl was mentally prepared for me to fight it. Instead, I was like, yeah, makes sense. We'll try again next summer. You guys are great. Because I'm not a raging witch. If my daughter doesn't do the required work, she doesn't deserve to pass. Her swimming did improve a lot and she had a blast. Plus, I paid a total of like $15 for those lessons, so whatever. Our third story is, Copywriter will have a hard time finding a job with that resume. Many years ago, I worked at Kinko's, now FedEx office. I often work graveyard shifts and had to deal with lots of people early in the morning who hadn't had their coffee yet. For some context, overnight was the time when long machine runs were printed and tedious finishing work was done. Being the only one working until 6 a.m. when the morning crew started to trickle in, I was often in the middle of something when the customer came in, and it would take me a second to get to the counter to help them. One morning, around 5 a.m., I am in the back doing some binding work. I heard the door alarm and had just put a perfect binding in the heater. This takes about 15 to 20 seconds to melt the glue and bind the pages. I yell from the back, "I'll be right out." Birch Tree customer BC yells back, "I'm in a hurry." I finish the binding and get up to the counter. "Sorry about the wait. What can I do for you?" "Can I see your resume paper selection?" Our resume papers were literally sitting 6 inches away from her on the counter in a little bound book that had resume paper printed in big bold letters. I slide the book over in front of her and open it up. As she flips through it, she proceeds to complain about the color and texture of every paper before asking me the price. 15 cents per copy plus 7 cents if you want to print on the second side. "That's expensive. Don't you have any better paper for that price?" "Sorry, that's our full selection of resume papers. The only other options are plain white copy paper, Astro Brights, neon colored, or cardstock. Are you going to need this double sided or single sided?" I could see that she had in front of her a 2-page resume, which usually printed single sided. "Which one is cheaper?" "Double sided will be cheaper, but for resumes, our customers usually prefer single sided. Just give me 50 copies double sided on the sandstone." I confirm her selection and head back to the copier to complete her order. I print out a proof, and as a matter of quality assurance, I give it a once over to confirm we're not getting any fuser marks, random spots, streaks, etc. I noticed that her job title on her most recent job was something like copy waiter. I assumed she meant copywriter and confirmed as much by reading a bit of the description. "Ma'am, I noticed your previous job title is..." Interrupting me, she says, "I'd appreciate it if you didn't snoop on my personal information." I apologize. I just noticed a tight, "Please just print my order." Malicious compliance is kicking in at this point. Okay. I printed the entire stack of 50 resumes and was squaring them up when I noticed "Lorem ipsum dolor sit emet" in the last paragraph on the page. At this point, I had to tell her, right? As I'm walking over to the counter to show her the missed filler text, she yells, "Will you please not crimp the pages? I need to hand those out." So I make it to the counter, placing her copies in a bag, and rang her out. She did come back later to complain, but my manager assured her that we don't make it a practice to proofread customers' documents, as that's their responsibility. Wow, this lady sounds like such a treat. Let's see what other people had to say about this Kinko's Karen. Hobbs0405 said, "Ages ago, I was hiring a copy editor. One cover letter touted the candidate's hair spitting accuracy. Diddy DM replied, I see Medusa had a career change. Good for her." Elton John Lennon said, "I imagine her resume must be rock solid." Someone else said, "Ouch, I can sympathize. For my first tech writing job, I submitted a resume that was supposed to read, in the skills section, comfortable speaking publicly and giving presentations. I'd spelled it pubically." Texas Gal said, "I had to proofread my college roommate's paper for her, and she had the name of opera singer Lucha Pop, known as Lucha Poop. We got a right laugh out of that typo." Two Tusks added, "Once I sent an email to my supervisor, the principal of the school, thanking her for pooping by. Luckily for me, she was cool. I, on the other hand, was mortified." Cyber Entomology said, back when paper resumes were still a thing and people would put them on fancy butt paper for no particularly good reason." Someone else said, "In theory, to make them stand out. Problem was, pretty well everyone was trying to make their resume stand out. Pretty paper, fancy fonts, color peaky at the candidate, headings, subheadings, etc. Indeed, the ones that started to stand out were those on plain 80 GSM bond paper with just the required information." Our last story topped the charts this week and is called, "So You Want to Make Sure Our Shed is to Code?" I love malicious compliance. Our neighbor reported our old but sturdy shed to the city for being too large without a permit. Inspector comes out, measures. Nope, the shed is well under the size limits and doesn't need a permit. Husband starts asking questions about the rules and gets all the specifics on what is allowed. The shed is old and very basic. Why not have a bigger, better shed? Oh, and by the way, the inspector knows the neighbor. She used to work in the planning department, knows the rules, and clearly was just trying to make trouble. Her MO. He looks into her property and says he can see a good half dozen issues if we'd like to report them. We laugh, but nah, we're going to go the malicious compliance route. We rip down the shed, hoping neighbor is smugly gloating to herself. We do nothing for 3 weeks. Well, except draw up plans, buy material, lay the foundation, and line up a couple construction friends to help. Then one Saturday, our glorious big new shed goes up. Now, we hadn't heard from this neighbor in the 3 weeks, but now she's asking about our new shed. She'd love to see inside if we don't mind. We did. Cue another inspection notice for building a granny flat, the shed, on our property. Obviously, the inspection goes fine. Well, except those violations on neighbor's property. That unpermitted open fire pit built right against the retaining wall and fence is a concern. We don't want it burning down our new shed. Ha ha. She's got a couple guys out there right now jackhammering out concrete. I think I'll go offer some cold drinks from the mini fridge in the new shed. Ha! Love it. People really do need to mind their own business. Nobody likes a nosy neighbor trying to stir things up. Others had some hilarious recommendations in the comments, and there's a fun anecdote. The Sanj said, offering them drinks is a very neighborly thing to do. Now, as soon as she clears up the fire pit problem, move on to the next item on the inspector's list. Do one violation at a time so as to keep her from getting bored. Gorilla added, this was my first thought too. Wait for the first thing to be completely fixed, let her relax for about a week, then hit her with the next one. Wash, rinse, repeat until neighbor has been fully broken. Drinking Bleach for Fun said, then, a few weeks after she's recovered from fixing all of the code violations, bam, you put a colony of Africanized bees in her mailbox. Kate's an Orchestra said, I had a neighbor who tried to weaponize code enforcement against me. What she didn't realize is that 1, the city doesn't care if I put my trash cans out 10 to 15 minutes before the officially allowed time. And 2, the head of code enforcement was her neighbor on the other side, whom she'd also been tormenting, and who told his staff what the score was and to ignore complaints against me. The day she listed her house for sale, he texted me a picture of the for sale sign, and we kept each other updated on the progress of the selling process. We're buds now. I repay him for his kindness vis-a-vis his staff by following code scrupulously. Gustavo Polinsky said, yes, a spite shed is the best shed. Ran added, now build a permitted fire pit of your own. If you've enjoyed the story and would like to hear more, consider liking, subscribing, and leaving a comment. Thanks, and bye for now.